Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the money multiplier, which is an effect of banks taking in deposits and making loans. So to begin, we'll imagine that we have a small town that is completely isolated from everywhere else. There is, let's say, $1,000 in currency in this town, no banks, and no money enters or leaves this town. Then one day someone sets up a bank and everyone deposits their money. Okay, so deposits are $1,000, and at the same time, because the bank has taken in $1,000 in deposits, it has $1,000 held in reserve, that is, held in its vault, let's say. Okay, now notice that over here we're counting deposits as liabilities. That is, deposits are what are owed to depositors, $1,000. Assets, and this is the same $1,000, however, when we look at it in this column here, it's something of value held by the bank. Okay, now because most of the money is just sitting there, the bank decides to start making loans. It also decides to always keep reserves equal to some percentage of its deposits. So just for the purpose of having some money on hand, if people want to withdraw money, then they'll be able to. So the bank is going to keep, let's say, 10% of its deposits. That is 10% of this $1,000. It's always going to keep in reserve. That is in the vault. All right, so we call this a 10% reserve requirement, and whatever the percentage is can be higher or lower, but we'll use 10% in this example. Okay, so the bank has $1,000 in deposits. It has to keep 10% of that in reserve, so it has to keep $100 in the vault, let's say, and it can loan the rest. So it's going to loan $900. All right, now it makes these loans, and eventually, we're imagining, and in reality this is pretty much what happens, okay, so whoever receives the $900 of loans is presumably going to spend it right away, and whoever receives it when it's spent is most likely going to deposit it into the bank. And that's generally what does happen. Okay, so now for deposits, we had $1,000. $900 has been deposited, so total deposits are going to be $1,900. And over here, we had $100 held in reserve. We've just added $900 that was deposited. That $900 is moved into the vault. And so reserves are back up to $1,000. Loans are still, for the moment, just at $900. So the total over here is $1,900 also. All right. Now, this value over here has gone up to $1,900, and this value here has also gone up to $1,000, but the bank only has to keep 10% of the $1,900 in reserve. So how much does the bank have to keep in reserve? 10% of $1,900, $190. It has $1,000 held in reserve, so it can loan $810. Okay, so it lends this amount. Now its reserves are going to go to 190. That is what we figured out over here. Its loans are going to increase to, let's see, loans were 900. They've just made an additional $810 in loans, and so loans are now at $1,710. This is going to total still $1,900. We've just moved money from reserves down to loans. And for the moment, deposits are still at $1,900. Loans have been made, but no new deposits have been made yet. But now they are. These loans are deposited. So deposits are going to go from 1,900 to 2,710. This 810 that was just deposited is going to be added to reserves. So reserves were 190. They've just gone up by $810. So that's again going to bring us back to $1,000 held in reserve. For the moment, loans are still at 1,710. So we have 2,710 over here and over here. Okay, but however, since this figure has gone up, how much does the bank now have to keep in reserve? 10% of 2,710, so that's going to be $271. It has 1,000, so it can loan out the difference, 729. Okay, and so let's say that it does. In that case, its reserves are going to drop to what we just figured out here, 271. Loans are going to go from 1,710. That amount has already been made in loans. We're adding another 729. That's going to bring us to 2,439, which is a total of 2,710, same as it was here. We've just moved money from from reserves up here down to loans. Okay, and for the moment, deposits are still at 2,710, but as you can probably anticipate, the loans are deposited into the bank. So our 2,710 is going to increase by 729. So that's going to bring us to 3,439. So this 729 that was just deposited is going to be added to the reserves that we just had. So that's going to be, again, get us back to 1,000. Loans for the moment are staying at 2,439. So our total here, 2,439. Okay, so we'll stop there. But let's look at a few things. So first, for this whole process, the point of having a worksheet and filling it out is so that you can look back over what's going on. And basically, the pattern is deposits are made, the bank makes loans, the loans are deposited, the bank makes loans again, the loans are deposited, it makes more loans, What was just lent is deposited. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Well, not forever. We'll get to that in a second. But, okay, so that's the pattern that we just went through. Now, how much currency is there in this town? Well, for this whole process, we've never added any bills or coins. We just have the $1,000 that we started with. So the total amount of currency is 1,000, but how much money is in this town? Well, that's this figure over here. So everyone who has money deposited in this bank believes correctly that they have whatever amount of money it is. Money held by the bank as deposits is money. And so right this moment in this town, even though there's only $1,000 in currency, there is $3,439 of money. Okay, so the money supply here, the entire money supply is bank deposits, savings or checking deposits. And so this figure is increasing as we go through this process, even though the amount of currency is not.